Hello everybody, welcome back. The year was 1938. A deep-sea sailing ship, a windjammer, had arrived at Port Chalmers. Such vessels were a rare sight by this time. It was the first to visit in a decade, and it was the talk of the town. The ship was called Penang, although it had originally been known as the Albert Rickmers. It had been built in Bremerhaven, in Germany, in 1905. Prior to World War I, it had been used for freighting nitrate out of Chile. But in the early 1920s, it was acquired by Captain Ericsson of Finland and entered the Australian grain trade. This photo shows the Penang travelling through Foveaux Strait under the command of Captain Carl Victor Carlson, bound for Auckland with a load of guano from islands in the Indian Ocean in February 1938. It was snapped from a passing Union Steamship Company vessel, the Kauri. The Kauri attempted to send newspapers across to the Penang, but the rocket line missed. So the newspapers were put in a can and attached to a buoy for the Penang to pick up instead. After discharging its cargo at Auckland and taking on some new crew, including a couple of replacements for last-minute deserters, two of whom were arrested in Dargaville about a month later, the Penang headed for South Australia to take part in the annual grain race, the competition to be the fastest windjammer to transport a load of grain from South Australia to the UK. It left Australia on the 19th of May, carrying 2,174 tonnes of wheat and headed out into the Southern Ocean. But south of Stewart Island, heading in the direction of Cape Horn, Penang got caught up in a great southerly gale, which damaged the ship's main topmast. Captain Carlson decided to head for Port Chalmers for repairs. Travelling at half its regular speed and becalmed for 2 days along the way, the Penang finally arrived off the Otago Heads and dropped anchor on the 12th of June. The tug Dunedin was dispatched to bring the stricken ship to Port Chalmers. The weather initially proved too rough, but 2 days later, Penang was able to enter the harbour and was escorted to Port Chalmers. On the 20th of June, the ship was taken from Port Chalmers to Dunedin, where its damaged spars could be removed with the assistance of 2 electric cranes. Soft drink makers Thompson's helped make the visitors feel welcome by supplying plenty of beverages to the stranded passengers and crew. There were 2 passengers sailing on the Penang, Dorothy Laird and Catherine Bridger. They and Captain Carlson would receive many invitations to social events during their stay in Dunedin. Most of the crew were from Finland, and on the 24th of June, Midsummer's Day and a national holiday in Finland, the sailors took time off to celebrate. That same day, one over-eager young sightseer was leaning on his bicycle on the edge of the wharf when he overbalanced and toppled into the water. He couldn't swim, so he grabbed onto a mooring rope until the Penang crew fished him from the water. Nearly a month after it had been dismantled, the topmast was ready to be reassembled. J.W. Roger of Thompson's paid another visit to again show some southern hospitality and to secure signatures for this memento, an impression of the ship's compass decorated with the signatures of the passengers and crew, along with the flag of Finland. Other visitors included the likes of these Sea Scouts. Once the repairs were finally completed, a farewell dinner at the Savoy restaurant was arranged by the Dunedin Company of Master Mariners on the 10th of August. The following evening, the crew was similarly hosted by the Committee of the Dunedin Sailors' Rest. The Penang was then towed to Port Chalmers. 2 days later, with final gifts exchanged, the Penang left Port Chalmers to the sound of Auld Lang Syne being played on the bagpipes. The windjammer was towed from Port Chalmers and out of the harbour. Then it anchored off Hayward Point, while the captain waited for news of one of his crew, Christian Sorensen, who had fallen ill and been admitted to the Dunedin hospital just before the scheduled departure. 4 days later, the ship sailed without him. Once again on its way to Falmouth in England to deliver its load of wheat. 2 years later, on the 2nd of July 1940, the Penang set off from Australia with yet another load of grain. It never made it to its destination and was later confirmed to have become a casualty of the Second World War, sunk by a U-boat off the coast of Ireland on the 8th of December. There were no survivors. Captain Carlson and several other sailors who had spent 2 months in Dunedin in 1938 were amongst the dead. See you next time, and thanks for watching.